So let's get to our top 3 catchers all time. We're rounding out our all-time depth chart here for the Phillies. We will put this out when it is finished very shortly. We just have really pitchers, bullpen, and managers to go. Maybe we could go front office execs if we want to get a little frisky. But we're on catchers now. So let's kick it off with number 3. We're going to go all-time Phillies third best catcher. This was kind of a tough list because 2 guys are left off of it that I think are, deserving. You might even be able to make the case if you really believed it. And it's 2 guys. One's on the Wall of Fame, Mike Lieberthal, and the other is near and dear to my heart, like Ranger.
I know.
ChoochLovesIceCream.com. I love Chooch. But we did not have either of them in the top 3. And I just wanted to give them, their credit because they were really good catchers. And I think going through this now, Tyler, Renee, if you disagree, I think this might be one of their most complete. Like if you were doing top 5s, I would say their catcher top 5 might be one of their stronger positions throughout their history.
Yeah,
I think.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the first things that jump out at me that is a difference from like first base, for example, is you actually have guys that played a significant amount of time with the Phillies.
Yeah.
And as we're doing this and we're going through their time with the Phillies, it's hard to put somebody in the best ever category when they've only played 2-3 healthy seasons. Whereas you get guys that have played, 8, 9, 10, 11 seasons with the Phillies. And not to mention, as we talked about, the accolades, you've got Gold Glove, you've got World Series, you've got All-Stars, you've got a lot of, accolades across this group that it's a very competitive top 5. And Tyler, now I'll let you go.
My bad.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. It's your show.
Tyler really was fighting for Eric Kratz to get in the top 3.
I was fighting for Sal Fasano was my number 1.
Oh, okay. But I had to throw some cold water on him.
I will say, I think, so starting pitching to me is the deepest Phillies depth chart you're going to get. And that probably is expected considering how many guys there are. But I mean, you could go back through the history of Phillies baseball and more decades than not, you're going to find an elite starting pitcher or a really, really good starting pitcher. I think the only ones you won't is, I don't know, the 2010. No, because then you still have Lee, Holiday, Lee, and Hamels towards
Lee
the back end.
Here
I mean, quite frankly, you're going to find somebody that's really good throughout the decades. So starting pitching to me is the deepest one, but this is a really good catching list.
Yeah, if Lieberthal and Chooch are 2 that are left off, I think it's a pretty good category. All right, so let's kick it off with number 3. Great baseball name. Bob Boone was a Phillies catcher from 1972 to 1981. Won 2 Gold Gloves here, made 3 All-Star games, had the luxury of catching one of the best pitchers ever in Steve Carlton. 10 years with the Phillies. There's his slash line, 259, 325, 346, just shy of 1,000 hits, 65 RBIs. Look, I always kind of view catchers offensively as just like gravy on top. 172 doubles in his career, just shy of 500 home runs, 350 runs scored, 23 stolen bases. As we said, 3-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove. Did win 7 in his 19-year career, but won 2 here. Bob Boone, great catcher. He's number 3 for us.
Yeah, only 3 have actually won more Gold Gloves than Boone in their total career. Do you guys know who they are? I'll just tell you. Yadier Molina had 9. Bench. I mean, not.
This is just catchers, right?
These are just yeah. Bench had 10, and Ivan Rodriguez had 13.
Pudge, one of the all-time
Boone,
nicknames.
one of the best, honestly, catchers in baseball history when you look at some of the numbers outside of even just his time with the Phillies. So, start off at number 3. Not a bad start to the list at all.
No, Tyler, Bob Boone.
Yeah, I think that this is – so when Bob Boone caught, it was an era of catchers being defensive-minded players. Yes. There wasn't a ton of offense to go around. And so the numbers, like you look at them and they don't jar – they're not like jarring and you go, oh, my gosh, this guy was such an elite offensive player. But back in, when he was, playing, the elite offensive catchers could probably be counted on one hand. And if you want to even take it a step further, the elite offensive catchers in the 70s and, into the early portion of the 80s could probably be counted on one finger. It was Johnny Bench. And he was the gold standard of catching offensive-minded catchers for quite some time. And quite frankly, Bob Boone won 7 Gold Gloves, and Johnny Bench won, I think, like 10 in a row at one point. From 68 to 77, he won 10 consecutive Gold Gloves.
Yeah.
Like, Bob Boone probably could have won more if he wasn't in an era that also involved Johnny Bench. And so like we talked about with guys like, when you think about like a Chase Utley, when we talk about him not winning those Gold Gloves and Brandon Phillips does, it like sometimes you can have an elite defensive player and they just don't get the hardware to show for it because another defensive player was around. Bob Boone was a really great catcher, and I think underrated offensively because he wasn't like a pushover like a lot of defensive catchers were at the time, and an elite defender for his time.
Yeah. Like Ed Wright says in the chat, like it's kind of like I can't believe Chooch didn't win a Gold Glove.
No.
And there's a strong case
Yachty was winning all of
Yachty or
them.
Molina existed and just
Exactly.
ate up all those votes. So, yeah, you can very much make the same case for Bob Boone. All right, number 2 on the list. And this is a guy I was this close to putting up a fight to make him number 1. But I'm a coward, and I didn't want to get roasted online and flamed for not giving number 1 his respect. But I think you can make the case that this guy is going to be the greatest Phillies catcher of all time. If it wasn't for the longevity, he has nearly almost 450 games less played as a Philly than our number 1. But JT Realmuto is freaking tremendous. He's only been here 5 years. He's approaching 600 games with the Phillies. There's a slash line, 267, 332, 468. When you talk about the inverse of Bob Boone, he is a tremendous offensive player. 581 hits, 95 home runs, 121 doubles, 335 RBIs, 334 runs scored, 63 stolen bases for a catcher.
The guy can move.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Now, he is a 2-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner, and a 2-time Silver Slugger. His career WAR is just barely a point behind number 1 in almost 450 less games. I think when we're talking about this in 2-3 years, and JT has that, 850 games played for the Phillies, I think he's going to be the best catcher in Phillies franchise history. But offensively, when you compare the numbers to him and Dutch, he's going to catch Dutch in a lot of these. But right now, because of longevity, Dutch has the odds, or, the odds are in his favor. But offensively, defensively, he's a great player. He's an athlete. He can run. He can steal bases. He's the modern day catcher that most teams would love to have.
Yeah. And honestly, I think by the end of his career, we'll be having a different conversation if things continue. Just celebrated a birthday this week also, turning 33.
Yeah.
So happy belated birthday to him. But listen, when you have a single season of the most putouts ever by a catcher in a single season of 1,190. Yeah, like that's insane.
Quickest pop time and fastest arm.
Exactly. The only catcher across the league to have thrown out 10 plus attempted base stealers and stolen, and steal 10 plus bases. JT is the evolution of the catcher, as you were even talking about, Tyler, that gives you a little bit of everything and has consistently been the best catcher in Major League Baseball the last few years. And is just so steady and consistent. So, yeah, number 2, without a doubt, when you look at JT's production on both sides of the ball. And he does just even give you a lot more in terms of, like, leadership and helping this team be what they are. A big part of that is JT. I mean, we have even had people say to us, one of the first things they asked us, like we saw back
the
this
woman
past
on the bus.
week.
Yeah,
like
she
even
goes,
this
do you know
past
JT?
Week. Right,
and
he's one of the
Realmuto?
names. And honestly, I feel like a lot of times when I tell people, oh yeah, I work with the Phillies, and I cover the Phillies and everything, JT's one of the first names that people think of. He's a fan favorite for a reason. So the numbers that he's had, it's remarkable, and he's not done yet.
So his worst pop time as a Philly was his first year in 2019. It was 1.88. He's led the league in pop time each of the 5 seasons that he's been a Philly. Last year, he finished 4th in blocks above average at 12. And the 2 of the 3 guys ahead of him, they're not surprises. It's Sean Murphy at number 1, Alejandro Kirk at number 2. Gabby Moreno is right behind him. You guys know how high of I am on him as a defensive catcher. I think he continues to ascend. I think that JT probably is on the downswing of his career. Like, it's probably not.
Rob Thompson said he's swinging the best bat he's ever seen him swing right now.
And maybe
I'd say
I'm
he's
wrong.
feeling good.
Maybe there's some semblance of a resurgence in year 30. Was it 32 or 33?
He just turned 33.
Just turned 33.
He's a young
so
33.
Correct.
he probably has 3 more full seasons as a catcher, which would put him at 8 full seasons as the Phillies catcher. And I think definitively, if he continues even on a trajectory that he's on the last 2 seasons, or last year, even when the numbers dipped a little bit, he's going to be the best catcher in Phillies history, I think, by every definable metric. The only thing that he doesn't have that maybe a Carlos Ruiz has is a World Series ring.
Yeah. And look,
But like that's not a definable metric to me in terms of like player to player.
Unfortunately, JT is feeling good. He's been talking about how, spring training's been going well for him. He's been feeling good. So hopefully this is not a down season for him. I even feel like, when you look at the 20 plus, 20 home runs he had last year is what he finished with. JT he's steady. And if he can continue that this year, I think our top 3 catchers by the end of his career again can possibly look a little bit different.
Yeah, and number 1 on the list, the favorite of many Phillies fans. He was the leader, the heartbeat, all of it of the 90s Phillies. He had a career 20.6 WAR with the Phillies. Darren Daulton from 83 through 97, 14 years with the Phillies, just over 1,100 games, 245, 357, 427 slash line, just shy of 1,000 hits, kind of, 134 home runs, 189 doubles, 567 RBIs, 489 runs, 48 stolen bases, which isn't bad, but a 3-time All-Star, came 6th in MVP voting in 92, 7th in 93, and he had 109 RBIs in 1992. Dutch was the leader. He was the boss. He was the man. Teammates loved him. Great catcher, and one of the longest tenured Phillies catchers. R.I.P. Dutch. You're a great dude, and had the privilege of getting to know him a little bit, meeting him several times. He was an awesome, awesome guy. Great catcher, and he's number 1 on the list.
Yeah, and that 92 season, he led the NL with those 109 RBIs. I mean, you look at the way that the history that he made. I know a number of you in the chat are saying, K-Red and Mickey, that, he was your favorite. Listen, when you look at the numbers that he's had and that he had in his career, one of only 4 catchers in baseball history to lead his league in RBIs. The others, Roy Campanella, Gary Carter in 84, Campanella in 53, and Johnny Bench, 70, 72, and 74 were the only others to ever lead their league in RBIs. In Phillies history specifically, ranks first at catcher in walks, on-base percentage, 2nd in home runs, RBI, slugging percentage, 4th in doubles, 6th in hits, 1st in B-WAR and F-WAR amongst Phillies catchers in the modern era from 1900 on. His numbers are, as you mentioned, remarkable. And that's why he's another one, a favorite. And Chris is saying the original dude.